Now that we have talked about our big goals, breaking that out into our mini goals, using our mini goals to then build individual goals with action steps and an action plan to keep us on pace, now we are going to start talking about using this action plan to guide our practice plan for the day. This is the template that I like to use to guide my practice planning so that I can get an overview of everything that I would like to see happen throughout the day, about how much time each of those things is going to take, making sure that I have room to put down specifics or notes for myself on what I want each of those sections to look like. It also keeps my focus and my goals top of mind as I'm building out that plan, and any notes or information that I may need to keep track of as I'm moving forward into next practice or throughout the season. So, to start, I think it's always important to add a date and time of your practice. So, today is September 7th, and practice is from 4 to 6 p.m. It may be helpful to write down what day it is. So, for me, today is Sunday, September 7th. I like to put all of this information because if we look back on it, if we keep these documents, we look back on them throughout the season, we may notice some patterns on how things go every Sunday practice or how things go during this time period. And so keeping track of those things may help us identify those patterns so that we can make adjustments accordingly. For our practice on this particular day, we are going to focus on the mini goal of one of our stunt improvements, and we are going to work on hitting our 360 up. All right, the first step to hitting them consistently is to hitting them at all. So now that I have my goal and my focus for the practice set, I'm going to work on filling in the skill column first. In other words, what order do I want to see things happen at practice? So that might start with warm ups. First thing, after warm ups, we're going to do some tumbling. After that, we'll touch on some jumps. We'll get into our stunting, and we'll be sure to do some conditioning at the end. Now that I have the categories of how I want to see practice run, I am then going to switch over to the timing. How long do I want to spend on each of these things? The two things that I would consider you to pay most attention to are your warm up section and your focus section for the day. Your warm up section is going to be pretty standard every practice. This should be pretty routine at this point, and you know how long it's going to take, what all needs to get done. We don't need to cut that short or add to it. So that time's going to be pretty set. The other thing we want to pay attention to is that if we are focusing on stunts for the day, then we want to make sure that we have time to focus on stunts. We're not doing all these other things and then end up where we only have 10 or 15 minutes to work on what was supposed to be our focus for the day. So as we set the times for everything, we want to pay attention to that. And maybe there's some adjusting that goes into it once you write down your times. Maybe you adjust as you go. So for warm-ups for me, I'm thinking that's going to take from 4 to 4:20 p.m. After warm-ups, we're going to go from 4:20 to 4:40, a quick 20 minutes for tumbling then. For jumps, we'll warm up 4:40 to 5, another 20 minutes there. All right, so we've got an hour put into the first 3 categories that we wanted to work on. We have an hour left. So we want to take the majority of that and we're going to put it into our focus spot. So we now have 40 minutes, double the time, into our focus section. And we want to make sure that we end on a strong note, leaving time, even if it's just a few minutes, for conditioning. So now we have the time of how our practice is going to go. For some of us that are a little bit more type B, this might be really all we need. Maybe we have a general plan in our heads. We like to run with the flow of things. This might be enough for us. For those of us that like a little bit more focus, some more guidance, we don't like to use more brain space than we have to during practice when there's plenty of chaos going on around us. Then we're going to work on putting in our activity section. So again, we're looking at, we have 20 minutes for warm-ups. What are we going to do in that time frame? What are warm-ups going to look like? So warm-ups this day might look like running laps. And then we're going to stretch as a team. And we're going to make sure that our flyers are stretched out as well. Once our warm-ups are handled, we'll jump into tumbling. We have 20 minutes for tumbling. How do we want to fill it? Maybe we start with our tumbling lines. We're warming up our bodies into the shapes that we need for tumbling, making sure that all of that is working for us. Maybe we move into standing timing, making sure that our back handsprings are solid, our back tucks are solid, that we are on time as a team. Maybe we move on to running tumbling. We warm that up. We work on the timing of that as well. And we feel that that is enough to fill our 20 minutes. So even though we might have a back handspring goal, our other mini goal of that back handspring goal, if you've been following along, this day might not be the day to be focused on drills for that. Warming up our tumbling and our timing is going to be enough because our focus is on stunts today. So we're doing enough in tumbling to be productive, but leaving the time for our focus and our goal for the day. Next, we're moving into jumps. Again, we've got 20 minutes for jumps here. How do we want to fill that? Maybe we start with our jump circuit and drills. All right, we take 10-15 minutes to work through all of those. And then we move into our jump pyramid, working on our stamina and our technique. If we have time, we will bump into individual critiques. Make sure that all of our athletes are being communicated with about where their weaknesses may be and given advice on how to adjust those. All right, so we are down our first hour. Now we are getting into our stunt section, again, our focus section. How do we want to spend those 40 minutes? What are we going to do in this section that is going to help us improve our stunts and hit that 360 up as we have in our goal section at the top? So that might look like starting out with drilling our basics. Start with a strong load in, start with a strong prep or a strong extension. We want to make sure that we are super solid in our basic technique before we start getting into the more advanced skills. Once our basics are reviewed and solid, we are going to learn or review our grips, body positions for the skill. We're breaking it down. We want to make sure that we are communicating what is happening in the stunt for every person that is involved. We're not just doing a quick tutorial and being like, try it, good luck. All right, we are going to break it down. We are going to watch as they are attempting the skills, and we are going to give corrections so that they can learn and adjust early. After we've done the initial teaching and review of what the skill is going to look like, we are going to give the team time to practice. Give your stunt groups space to work it out. You might be moving around and watching, making corrections, helping coach, giving them advice and critique, but letting them figure out the skill as a group. Sometimes it just takes getting used to each other to make the stunt work. So we want to give them time to work on that, build their confidence and their understanding of that skill under your guidance. We've got 40 minutes for that. We want to make sure that that stays pretty solid since we're getting towards the end of practice. And we want conditioning to be focused on helping us reach our goal as well. So we don't want to skip that. So a conditioning workout that is going to help us reach our stunt improvement goal, hitting our 360 up, building our strength, our stamina, our understanding, our technique. Maybe that looks like running some stunt burnouts. Helping our athletes lock into their technique so that they are holding their extension as long as possible. Or maybe they're holding their libs as long as safely possible. Whatever that stunt burnout looks like for your team, that is what we're going to do for conditioning at the end of practice. Again, stunt conditioning for a stunt goal. The last little thing that I want to point out at the bottom of this planner is space for you during practice. So this is something that you probably will be leaving empty going into practice, but something that you will want to review when you make your next practice plan. So some things that might end up in this note section: Julie's out sick. You might even start with that one. That might be a unique one that starts on this list. So you know that Julie's stunt group needs something else to do that day. You have to modify your practice so that Julie's group is still getting work done. Maybe Abby is 5 minutes late. What does that look like with your attendance policy? Don't go to your attendance chart right now. You don't need it. You've made a note. You'll go back, you'll handle it later. Again, minimizing the chaos, minimizing the brain space. Maybe we were working on tumbling and we noticed that timing is rough. All right, so we're gonna make a note. Tumbling timing needs work. Guess what our priority for next practice is likely going to be? Tumble timing. You have now already set the framework for next practice. Maybe you noticed that a couple of groups might benefit from some rearranging of athletes. It might not be something you wanted to do today because you wanted to give the groups an opportunity to get used to each other, get used to the skill. Maybe we're new in learning this stunt. We want to give them time. But you wanted to make a note so that if there continues to be struggle, or you just want to try out something different the next time we're focusing on stunts, you remember that you had this thought and you want to see how these athletes work in each other's groups. So we're going to write a note that says switch Mitch and James in groups. All right, so now you know for next time you can look back on this, and that is an easy thing for you to identify and make an adjustment for the next time that you're focusing on stunts. Now that you've taken 5 to 10 minutes to sit down, think, put this down on paper, all you have to do is take this into practice with you, and you have your practice right there. All you have to do is read off from it and keep the timing moving. Now our chaos is minimized, our mental overwhelm is minimized, and not only are we working towards our goals, but we are pushing towards our goals. There are multiple aspects within this practice plan for this day that is driving us not only towards our hit our 360 up goal, but it's also driving us towards our tumbling goals. It's also driving us towards our jump goals. And it is also driving us towards our big goal of maxing out our score sheet. And it just took 5 to 10 minutes of pre-practice thinking to make our success and our team's success look and feel easy.